So we've been talking all week about getting more of Jesus and less of us. And the next topic is a little bit difficult because what we're talking about is the barriers to having more of Jesus and less of us. Now, the topic for today is one that people tend to right away, they don't want to talk about it, right away they don't want to think about it, they don't want to tune in for it. But I'm encouraging you to continue to tune into it because as I did this research, what I discovered was very, very interesting. And that brings us to Genesis chapter 3, which is where the fall happens. It's that very first sin. It's when Satan deceives Eve and takes a little bit of what God said, twists it, throws in some lies, and Eve decides to go ahead and eat the forbidden fruit. Now, we're not going to read the entire thing, but what I really wanted to point out to you was right away in verse 1. It says, "Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, did God actually say?" Let's identify what that is right there. Right there, he's throwing in that seed of doubt. He's throwing in, well, let's be very specific about what God has said, and let's find the loophole. That's what Satan is doing there. And he says, did God actually say, "You shall not eat of any tree in the garden"? And the woman said to the serpent, "We may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden. But God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that is in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it, lest you die." But the serpent said to the woman, "You will not surely die." There's that seed of doubt again. He's saying, you're not going to die. And he's talking about physical death. Right now, he is being honest in the fact that they won't have that physical death, but that spiritual death is coming. "For God knows when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Again, still not a lie, because now if Eve eats of that fruit, she is going to be aware of her sin. And that means she's going to understand good and evil, but the lie is that she will be like God, that she will be more powerful, that she will have more majesty, more authority. There's the lie in there. So the woman decides to eat it, and she gives some fruit to her husband, Adam, and Adam decides to eat of it. And so then we get to verse 8. And here's what really jumped out at me that was very interesting. The sin has already happened, okay? Where does the separation happen? Watch for where that separation between them and God happens and who initiates that. "And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And the man and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God in the trees of the garden," among the trees of the garden. Who did the hiding? It was Adam and Eve. The Lord is looking for them. In fact, the Lord is about to call out to them and say, "Where are you?" The Lord is still seeking them despite the sin. That's God's beautiful grace. God did not move away from them. They moved away from God. Why? Because they were ashamed of their sin, because they knew that they were out of line. They knew they did what they were told not to do, and they were ashamed of it. So as we continue on, "But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, 'Where are you?' And he said, 'I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked and I hid myself.'" Never before had Adam been afraid to be in God's presence. It's because of the sin that he was afraid to be in God's presence. It was because of the shame. It was because he knew he had goofed up. He felt unworthy of God's presence. God never declared that Adam was unworthy of his presence. Adam decided he was unworthy of God's presence. Your sin is a barrier to having more of Jesus and less of us. And it's not because of Jesus's hard attitude, it's because of ours. We feel shame. We don't want to talk about the sin. We don't want to get it out in the open. We don't want to move past it. We want to keep following our flesh. All of those things prevent us from having that time in God's presence. He said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" Now, here's the interesting thing. God never said, "You ate of the tree." No. He's looking for Adam to take some accountability and confess the sin. God doesn't say, "You got out of line, you did this, you." No, that's not what God did. He said, "Did you?" It's very interesting that that's happened. So then the man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave the fruit of the tree and I ate." Again, not taking accountability, not saying, "I messed this up, I am so sorry, Lord," and confessing it. He's saying, "Oh, it's her fault. She gave me the fruit." So, and that's often that's a natural human tendency. We do it. We want others to do it, so we feel better about the fact that we did it. And then we still feel the need to hide from God. Why? We don't trust God because we listen to others' desire for sin. We listen, in this case, Eve listened to the serpent and thought, "You know what? My situation's going to be better when I go into that sin." But I don't want you to miss the grace. God's presence never was taken from them. God's presence was 100% available to them. In fact, God was seeking them out to spend time with them, despite their sin. When we confess our sin and we get it out of the way and we move past it, we can get more of Jesus and less of us. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.